A very good morning and welcome back to our TVP World Studio. You're watching World Talks and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. The Georgian parliamentary election was one of the major subjects of discussion in recent days, as the future trajectory of the country would be defined by who would take office. According to reports, partial recount by Electoral Commission proved that Georgian Dream won the election after all. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by Elene Kintsurashvili, Program Coordinator of the 4th German Marshall Fund East. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So as we're looking at the recount, is it somewhat possible that Georgians have chosen to move closer to Russia instead of moving closer towards the EU accession? And if so, why do you think that is the case?
So taking a look at Georgian politics, it's always been highly polarized, therefore it's definitely not just as black and white. We do have to understand that looking at
the colors.
Definitely. And we do have to understand that while looking at Georgia under the leadership of the Georgian Dream, we don't necessarily have different constitutional bodies that are independent. We have Georgian Dream that has its grip, for example, on the Central Election Commission that did say that Georgian Dream won elections with 54% and therefore will form a majority in the parliament. Georgian Prosecutor's Office is also under the Georgian Dream's grip, as well as the judiciary. The only independent constitutional body that we have right now in Georgia is the President's Office, and the President, Salome Zurabishvili, was very clear in her statement saying that the elections were rigged, that they were stolen, and Georgian people did not have a possibility to vote in a free and fair elections. There are also a number of reports by local observation missions as well as international observation missions saying that definitely in the lead up to the parliamentary elections as well as on the day of the parliamentary elections, there were a number of violations, voter coercion, voter intimidation, and other kind of proves that indeed what we are facing is not the Georgian Dream's victory, but a victory of combined pro-European opposition parties that afterwards was hijacked by the ruling party of Georgian Dream.
I just wanted to take a look at this recount because there was 20% of polling stations involving 40% of the vote. We heard from the committee that, I quote, that this recount didn't actually lead to a significant change to previously announced official results, while global research and data confirms that this sample might not be big enough to actually, and it's statistically impossible for them to be able to tell. Can we even believe such a small sample when it comes to checking the election results, and how does that correlate to a possibility of having a new vote take place?
So definitely, I think what we have to take a look at is definitely the preliminary reports of the local observation missions. We have leading Georgian watchdogs such as International Society for Free Elections and Democracy, Georgia's Young Lawyers Association, Transparency International Georgia. Looking at their reports, they do, for example, ISFED, they have said that they are not going to publish the results of their recounting alongside the Central Election Commission because they do believe that elections were rigged at such a larger scale that actually focusing on only one day of the elections is not going to lead us anywhere. For this reason, it is crucial to understand that there was a systematic fraud that took place in the run-up to the elections, not only on the day of the elections. And that is, I think, a crucial point for our international partners as well to understand that when taking a look and a crack at understanding what actually took place in Georgia, they do have to focus about the events that led to the elections that took place only last Saturday. And as you rightfully mentioned, for example, just yesterday, Edison Research that has been publishing their exit polls in Georgia for the past 12 years, and usually the difference between their exit polls and then the official results published by the Central Election Commission, the difference was very small, only about 2%. This time the difference is 13%. Therefore, the director of the Edison Research also said that it is just impossible basically for Georgian Dream to have landed such a high number of the votes if there did not take place a systematic scheme and fraud behind it all.
A very pro-European Georgian president, Mrs. Zurabashvili, she was actually called for questioning because she is said to have evidence of how the election was rigged. However, she rejected the idea. With the powers constitutionally bestowed upon her, is it possible for her as a president to be able to do anything about having a new vote, or possibly having any sort of a safety valve mechanism being introduced to make sure that there's something to be done about this?
So unfortunately, under the system, the parliamentary system that we have right now, President does not really have a lot of tools that she can use in order to have an actual and real effect when it comes to demanding some of the things. This is why she's closely cooperating with 4 major pro-European parties, as well as our vibrant civil society organizations and leading watchdogs, election observers on the spot. And this is precisely why when she was questioned, she was asked to show up at the Georgia's prosecutor's office for questioning. She said that it's not her job as the president to provide the Georgia's prosecutor's team with actual proofs of where, how, and when elections were rigged, but rather this is job of the local observation missions, which as it is, they are right now working on the final report to be represented at the prosecutor's office. But this is also another interesting thing, that given that the prosecutor's office, Central Election Commission, and the judiciary are under the Georgian Dream, there is not that much, unfortunately, that even our vibrant civil society can do. And this is also why right now we're seeing a lot of statements from the opposition as well as the president, asking our international partners to stand on the side of the Georgian people, to apply pressure on Georgian Dream, and to demand actual independent investigation into what took place that would be followed by new elections administered by international observers, because once again, unfortunately, all the state resources in Georgia right now are under the grip of the Georgian Dream. Therefore, there is no hope that there would be an actual independent investigation that will take place.
I think that was very important of you to say, so that some of our viewers that might not actually have a broader overview of the Georgian politics would actually have an idea how this whole mechanism functions. Do you think that there's still a chance that the West will be able to somewhat apply pressure to Georgian Dream in order to be able to have another vote? Because not only we are looking at internal politics of Georgia, but we're also looking at the potential future in the European Union with everything that happened on Wednesday. The recommendation is that Georgia is now further away from EU accession than it was before.
Definitely. So as you rightfully mentioned earlier this week on Tuesday, European Union's ambassador to Georgia, Paweł Herczynski, already said that unfortunately for the time being, Georgia's accession into the European Union is stopped. And this is because of all the actions of the Georgian Dream, because they are trying to do everything in their power to jeopardize this accession. This was also later approved by the enlargement report that we received. As you rightfully mentioned, elections of Georgia are not going to affect only the European future of the Georgian people, but also at large the geopolitics in the region, in European Union's neighborhood. We already saw Georgia's immediate neighbors, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, congratulating Georgian Dream on their victory. This is a win for Moscow. They also extended their heartfelt congratulations to the leadership in official Tbilisi. They said that if things go south, they are ready to provide support to Georgian Dream to actually continue holding the power.
The support in this case sounds very ominous.
Definitely it does, and it is very scary. So for this reason, going back to the first part of your question, I think that our Georgia's Western partners just have to understand the gravity of the situation, that this was not just any regular elections that were held in Georgia, that this is one of the last chance that we have to actually save Georgia from getting back to Kremlin's influence orbit. And for this reason, what they have to do is that they have to be extremely clear in their messaging, that business is not going to go back to usual with Georgian Dream, that there will be actual repercussions.
What kind of repercussions are we looking into? Is there going to be a package of sanctions? Is it going to be more economic, more political, diplomatic?
So looking at the civil society, Georgian civil society, and the opposition, what they're asking is that definitely they are asking for financial sanctions sanctions. They are asking for travel bans. They are asking for freezing of assets of Georgian Dream members, as well as other enablers that they have in official Tbilisi. Georgian Dream, we witnessed that they are looking for international recognition. This is also why, as the very first thing that the Prime Minister did, is that he reached out to Hungary. Hungary's Prime Minister invited him to come for an official visit to Tbilisi only 2 days after elections took place, even before we had official Central Election Commission results.
Hungary likes to sit on the fence.
Definitely.
Here.
And this was an act, this was Georgian Dream reaching out to at least one European leader that they knew would come to save Georgian Dream and sort of to try to salvage the image that indeed these elections were free and fair, which in fact they were not. So if the West has this understanding that the Georgian elections don't only have effect on the Georgian people, but rather at the geopolitics in the region and EU's future in its immediate neighborhood, they should definitely put diplomatic pressure on Georgian Dream. The sanctions that we've mentioned, they should be applied, and they should be very clear in their messaging that in this fight they stand on the side of Georgian people, Georgia's civil society, Georgian president, and not on the side of the Georgian Dream who rigged and stole elections from Georgian people.
And only to finish off shortly, what do you think? Do you think that Georgia actually, how much time in terms of time frame we have to see a change come to Georgia before it gets sucked into the event horizon of Russia?
So there is definitely a sense of urgency, but there is also a sense of on the Georgian opposition as well as Georgian people side, there is a sense that we have to be extremely careful with the next steps coming in, because we do understand that there is an urgency needed, that we do have to act, but there is also an understanding that we have to be very careful with the next steps coming in. There was a hype that I was seeing on social media. For example, people were international folks were demanding that Georgian people would take it to the streets immediately and start to protest. But if there is no action plan, then there is no point for Georgian people to actually protest every single day, because there wouldn't be a genuine outcome that we would be able to get. For this reason, on Monday, the opposition already announced another wave of protests. They are hinting that these protests are going to be united on all the specters. They are hinting that the protests are not going to end until the Georgian Dream will actually call for investigation and new elections administered by international society. So as you mentioned, there is definitely a sense of urgency, but at the same time, we cannot afford to lose Georgia right now, which means that we do have to think about each and every step that we take, also to prove and show to the West and to Georgia's international partners that we are really serious about what's happening, that we don't just say that elections were rigged and stolen from us, but we do actually have proof, and it's not just words that come from the air without any ground.
Most definitely. This is a very dynamic situation, and we will be reporting more on that here. Thank you so much for joining me, Elene Kintsurashvili. Pleasure as always. And so this would be all for now here on World Talks, but please do stay tuned as we will be bringing you more news and features here on TVP World.